जी आए ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਸੋਚ ਟੀਵੀ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਇੰਦਰਜੀਤ ਕਾਲੀਰਾਏ ਆਪਣੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਰਹਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਜੋ ਕੈਲੀਫੋਰਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਜੂਨ 2 ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਾਇਮਰੀਜ਼ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕੰਗਰੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟਸ ਆ ਆਪਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਅੱਜ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਕੈਲੀਫੋਰਨੀਆ ਡਿਸਟ੍ਰਿਕਟ 3 Chris Bish. Welcome to Ajj Kal America, Chris. We've talked before. We've talked about Prop 50. We've had discussions about the redrawing of the districts and everything else. That is
Yeah.
old news. So we're on to the primary for California, which is where they drew the district lines, and they tried to gerrymander, a word they don't like, the districts. So there was a favorable voting block for the other side. Other side meaning you're standing as a Republican candidate for District 3, the other side meaning the Democrat. And it's interesting on how these things are falling into place. This is not only a California issue when it comes to redistricting. It started with a federal Supreme Court ruling that impacted Louisiana. It moved to California and then Texas as a tit for tat type of episode. Texas is doing it. We have to do it. And now we hear a lot about Virginia. Many other places are in this political game, if that's the right words. But anyway, in a few weeks, I think it's 3 weeks from tomorrow, there's going to be a ballot. Oh, 2 weeks actually, I'll correct that. You're on the ballot. Mail-in ballots are already being processed, and you're in District 3. There's a lot of things that we could talk about, and there's lots of news in California on the federal issues, ICE, the budget. There's a lot of collaboration financially between the state and the federals, but the feds are talking about withholding funds because the state won't do this or that. Let's start off with an introduction to Christine Bish, the candidate for District 3, and then we'll go into all these things that come November and then oath taking in January. What could we expect from Christine Bish as the congressional representative for California 3? So that's what we'll talk about, but let's start with you first.
Okay, so we're going to start. Hello, everyone. My name is Christine Bish. I am a candidate for California's 3rd Congressional District. Now, I am in the Sacramento area, and the 3rd District, thanks to the redistricting that we had just talked about, it goes from South Sacramento around Franklin and 47th, Florin Road, Lemon Hill. It goes up into Rancho Cordova, Arden Arcade, that area. Now, what's fascinating about how they drew this district is once we hit the Sacramento County line, going up Highway 80 and going over to Rancho Cordova, then we pick up all of northern and northeastern Placer County. We have El Dorado County, just around Apple Hill, Pollock Pines area. But it goes all the way to South Lake Tahoe, around the lake, up to Truckee, and then you cross over all that forest land in between over to Grass Valley. So what they did was they created this district that really looks like an elephant. And that elephant trunk goes down into South Sac. So you say, we're down in a densely populated suburban area of South Sacramento. And we go all the way up to Truckee and South Lake Tahoe. What do these communities have in common? Human beings live there, and everybody's paying too much for gas, utilities. We're all worried about crime. But these areas were not designed. This district was not designed to represent people. It was politicians fighting amongst themselves to control power. So in this one, I am the best candidate to represent this new version of the 3rd Congressional District. And I'm going to tell you why. I spent 10 years working down in the Franklin and 47th. I used to repossess cars down there. worked as an investigator down there and a skip tracer. So I'm very, very familiar with that area. Spent a lot of time with the people, with the businesses, and that's going back a ways. But in my real estate business, I've been doing real estate for 23 years now. I do sell homes. I work with buyers and sellers, work in South Sacramento, and in fact, the whole district. So then when we go up into Auburn, into El Dorado County, even up into South Lake Tahoe, my family had a local restaurant up there and spent several years driving every weekend to work at the family restaurant because we're old school. You know, families work together. It's that I guess it's just my heritage. It's you work. Everybody works, and even when you're young. I had started when I was 8 years old in my family's restaurant, and my job was to fill salt and pepper shakers and wipe off menus. And as you do a good job, you work up. And so I've always had that hard work mentality. So when we look at this new district from these urban areas going into the foothills of, even before we get into foothills, Granite Bay, Folsom, Arden Arcade, Fair Oaks are the people in this area. Then we get up into the foothills and up into the mountains. You know, wildfires and California unfair plan is that is a huge concern because it's pricing people out of their homes. In being a real estate and mortgage professional, I understand that California Fair Plan, which was insurance, was supposed to be a last resort. If you couldn't get insurance for whatever reason, this was your last resort. What we've seen in California, the way they've regulated the insurance market, the homeowners insurance, we now have a single payer system. A single payer system that doesn't pay claims, overcharges people, and then cancels them because the risk is too high. So we have people who are actually losing their homes because let's say you have a $2,000 a month mortgage payment, you have a $2,500 a month insurance payment. It's not that they can't afford their home, they can't afford the mortgage insurance, or not the mortgage insurance, the fire insurance. So one of the solutions that I came up with, and this is important when we're talking about Christine Bish as a candidate, it's finding solutions. Any candidate, anyone running for office or in the media, we can regurgitate the problems, but what are your solutions? Not empty promises. I want to help the homeless. I want to help with insurance. Well, great. A lot of people want to help, but specifically, what are you going to do? So what I did was I wrote a bill, and it's called the Wildfire Act. And what I did was I took national flood insurance and I repurposed it and turned it into national fire insurance, and actually copyrighted this bill so my opponents couldn't take credit for it. But what it does is we saw in flood prone areas where insurance companies were pulling out, and we understand they're in there to make a profit. And they were not writing those policies anymore. So the federal government had to step in, I guess a safety net, if you will, to offer national flood insurance. And everyone is offered that. When you buy a new home or you refinance, you also have earthquake insurance in California. That's optional, but fire insurance is not an option. So with this new plan, it's not just for California because we know Georgia's having wildfires. They have them all over the country. And so it also includes, it's not just insurance, but it's hardening homes, making sure that we have funds available, investing in fireproof roofs, fireproof siding, defensible space. So rather than waiting for FEMA when an area is declared a disaster, FEMA reacts. We're going to be proactive with the Wildfire Act. Part of what I wrote into not only the insurance savings, so you have an option other than the single payer system we now have in California in high fire areas, but we're investing in homes. So in there, I propose that we have low and no interest loans for changing the roofs, putting, defensible space, hardening the home, but there's no payment due until the house is sold or refinanced. That is an investment in making sure that FEMA isn't coming in and we're paying pennies on the dollar to buy out people who have lost everything. So it becomes a relationship rather than waiting for someone to rescue us. It gets people involved. We also have written into the legislation uh, cooperation between the federal, state, and local fire agencies, including CAL FIRE, U.S. Department of Forestry, on how they will work together and how we will make sure we have funding in those areas. Now, at first, this was written for people in high fire areas, but what we're finding out with the insurance companies is they're finding reasons not to renew policies in California. So this is a way not just to help California, but to help our country and help us from going from reacting to these disasters to being prepared, preventing, and being proactive in making sure that people are covered. This is a game changer nationwide, and I'm excited to have authored this bill. So I have other legislation that I am working on, and that is to retrofit and reactivate in California uh, Rancho Seco and provide new, clean, renewable energy with new, modern nuclear technology. And the reason that I've picked out the Rancho Seco site, because I believe, based on what they're doing at 3 Mile Island, that we can take this decommissioned nuclear power plant and refurbish it, update it, and be able to, within 2 years, start providing power to the Sacramento, to the third congressional district. And what's wonderful about this is the infrastructure is there, the ability to carry the power, all of the environmental studies. This has already been a power plant where it has been decommissioned. We can avoid a lot of the regulation, the red tape, the inevitable lawsuits. And when we look at California, the importance of California, this is a national security issue. And I think taking that federal approach to power, where we're not allowing local environmentalists, if you will, determine how California performs on a national basis, we have the ability to step in and really serve people, all people, regardless of party. And I'm excited to get to work. There's it's not regurgitating the problems. It's finding solutions, simple solutions, nothing new, just repurposing what we already have. It's keeping it simple, and it cuts through the red tape.
I quite follow that, keeping it simple. The history that we have as a people, as a nation, we tend to not apply the laws that we already have, but we have this drive to create new laws. And when it comes to gun control, we're failing to apply the laws that we already have on the books. And specifically, if somebody's committed a crime, go arrest them, go charge them, put them in prison. But we have these new social policies where inmates could be compassionately treated and they could change. And they, again, time after time, prove that if somebody's a hardened criminal, they're not going to change. They're just going to go do whatever they did before. When it comes to the two items that you bring up, one, power, two, the fire issue, coming to District 3, a lot of your district that's right now California District 3, it goes into the Tahoe Basin. It covers a lot of the eastern side of California, and that is mountainous. It's a mountainous terrain. That area has seen wildfires. It's been
Yes.
victim to those. Earlier this year, we had the fires that took out Palisades. And how many
Yep.
months have gone since then? And we have issues with the fundraising that was done, where people attended a fundraising event, but we don't know where the money went. And yes, something like what you discussed for the fire plan, same as the national flood insurance, those things can be beneficial. But when we have some people in the state occupying high positions, they have these events occur, whether it be the LA mayor or it be our governor, and they don't know where $100 million that was raised during that concert went. Is somebody's got to be asking these questions, and why our voters are not is mind-boggling. But coming back, you've already mentioned how you could address the insurance and the fire policies. There are a lot of people in that area. As a realtor, you already know that, who can't afford the insurance. You gave the example yourself. If you got a $2,000 month insurance premium on top of your mortgage, I think that the $2,500 mortgage payment you cited is old news, because anybody buying a house in that district, that region of California, I don't believe they're going to have a $2,500 mortgage payment. If they're a young couple buying that property, they don't have a lot of money for down payment, their
Mm-hmm.
loan may be at the 650, 700,000 level, and
Yes.
their mortgage payment is going to be roughly 5,000 something, and then add in all the other stuff, and now you got to come up with another 2,000 for fire insurance. Yes, that's painful and it's going to hurt. And it's not the fact that you can't afford the house, it's the fact that the other parameters that enable you to protect it in the event something happens, you can't just afford to make that payment. So it's a very tough situation for homeowners. It's a tough situation for people who already live in that area. And like you said,
Yeah.
yes, for the last few years, insurance companies have been denying coverage for these people. And there's a handful of people out there that I know that just can't afford it, that don't have the insurance, and they're just preying on the insurance above. Don't bring the fire, sort of that's their last recall. Pray to the guy upstairs or gal. But come November, come January, you take the oath of office. How do you think this bill that you've written, should you present it into Congress come January, February next year, what path would it take?
I'm not waiting until I'm elected. There are several members of Congress that I have approached. They are all in their primaries right now. And I have meetings set up once we know who's going to be in the November election. I'm trying to get a sitting member of Congress now to pick this up. I'm not trying to take credit for it. I'm trying to help my friends, my neighbors, and my family uh, be able to afford this, because regardless of whether I'm elected, I still live here and we've got to make changes. So I'm working not for my glory, but to serve the people of my community. So when I talk about regurgitating what's wrong, anybody can talk about what's wrong. It's what are you willing to do to fix it? And then at what point are you willing to do it? Me, that's why I'm reaching out to sitting members of Congress now, because California can't wait. We can't wait another year. And then what happens when if we lose the House, if Republicans lose the House, we know it's going to happen. They don't care about insurance. They're not going to care about waste and fraud and abuse. It's going to be about impeaching Donald Trump. And that is what everything will be focused on. The price of gas, the price of food, water storage, flood, fire insurance, what our schools look like, immigration funding. We've already seen what they've done, shutting down not just ICE, but our airports, shutting down transportation, people working for free. This is what socialists want, absolute control. It is imperative that we hold on to the House of Representatives. And in California's 3rd congressional district, I believe I am the most qualified candidate to represent not just Republican voters, but all voters. And that's why I wrote the Wildfire Act. That's why I wrote the legislation to reopen Rancho Seco with modern technology. There are other bills that I'm working on that I'll be introducing in the next few days. One of them, I call it the Damn It Act. And what it is, it's for us to reopen uh, the plan to build the Auburn Dam. I know why it was shut down, the original plans, because they were worried about being a fault line. Well, if you're in California, you're on or near a fault line. So, but with modern technology and building practices, we need to reinvestigate this, not only to supply us with water, drinking water, water for farming, water for infrastructure, but also for hydroelectric power. We already had approved decades ago to raise Shasta Dam. I want to raise it. We saw just a couple of years ago where the Oroville Dam, where people were evacuated because the dam was failing. We have to invest in California's infrastructure, and that includes water, hydroelectric power. We've seen one dam already, reservoir here torn down. Other ones like the Sykes Dam, that one, that water storage has just been flailing for years. And now they're planning on tearing out more. We need to reinvent this and do it where it's responsible, where we take the environment, fish ladders, everything, making sure that as we do it, we think about conservation and our relationship with our planet and with wildlife and keeping humans safe. These artificial floods, we know we have to have water go out through the delta. It's required so that we don't have seawater, salt water come back up and contaminate fresh water. But it doesn't have to be this all or nothing. My liberal opponents, uh, they're they like to feed on chaos and negativity. I'm an optimist. I see nothing but positive things moving forward where we can serve everyone and protect our environment, take care of the people, and make us prosperous. California, we have so much opportunity here. We get past the waste, the fraud, the abuse, the crime, and look for a positive solution, positive future. Everybody benefits.
Totally on the benefit side, if we can fix all these solutions. And you've covered key components of the infrastructure that we have. One of them is power. And
Yep.
going back, I believe, about 2 years, the California Power people, the Commission Utilities, they were advising you not to charge your electric car because the weather was so hot and we needed to conserve electricity for running the ACs within our homes.
Yep.
That contradicts, in my view, because on one side we're being told to buy electric cars, and on the other side we're
Mm-hmm.
being told not to charge them. And the next piece in that puzzle is if you can't afford to pay your bills because you couldn't get to work because you didn't charge your electric car, we have an economic crisis just building up in that cycle. I don't believe these people who want to mandate that California will have electric vehicles not being sold solely at the new dealerships and stuff like that have actually thought about the consequences of power and how much power we actually need as a state, as a nation. And over the last few months, we've had this demand for AI. And what this AI wants beyond the land space to build these humongous data centers is those data centers are going to need power. They're going to need to be
Yes.
cooled. They need to be powered up. So both those things need to happen. The data centers need to be built, construction jobs. Data centers need, hopefully, they need some employees, but ultimately, to be productive, they need power and they need to be cooled down because what we know about mechanics and electronics is they heat up when they work, and therefore we have to
Yes.
keep them cool. One of the means that they use for cooling them is water, but we're
Right.
shipping that down to the ocean. We don't want the Auburn Dam because, like you just said, there's a fault line there. We haven't thought our resources through. Primarily, sitting on an infrastructure that was designed in the 60s and 70s, designed to handle the population that we had then. Today,
Yes.
our population is probably 5 or 6 times that population, and we have
Yes.
not built the resources to accommodate our people. One of the resources being water supply, and the other one being power supply. Forget the transportation grid. As a congressional representative, what type of things can you do at the federal level that can solve some of these issues for California? Yes, not just for the people who vote for you, but for the whole district and California at large, because these problems impact all of us. Farmers in the Central Valley need water. We're not giving them the water they need. Instead, we're shipping it down to the ocean because we have
Mhm.
this little fish that needs the water more than we, the people, do. Where do we draw this balance? And where does Congressional Representative Chris Bish come in January in enabling California? Um, I think where I'm going with this is the federal law takes precedence. The federal powers are supreme compared to the state in a lot of areas, but we're hearing candidates for
Yeah.
governor saying that we're going to arrest federal law enforcement officials if they break the law. What law are they breaking? California law? Doesn't federal law supersede? But that thing aside, what could you do to address the issues of infrastructure for California that would, at the federal level, trickle down to California and make life easier, let's say over your first term?
Okay, and I'm glad you brought that up because I do understand the supremacy clause, but and I do not favor centralization of power, regardless of where that power is being centralized. But California is a hot mess, and it has been a hot mess. Now we're arguably it's anywhere between the third and the fifth largest economy on the planet, the state of California, and we are dwindling because of mismanaged, because of our infrastructure. But these are national security issues. We're talking about food security. That's making sure that our farms are healthy, that we have water, that we're growing food nationally. Depending on food coming in, not only from other countries, but from our enemies, we've seen the recalls on baby formula and on vegetables, on produce, even meat coming in from other countries. We need to make sure at a national security level that we do that we put our farmers first, that we provide the water, we provide the infrastructure. And again, with energy, with gas, we're looking at California that's not allowing drilling. We already have the wells down in Bakersfield, Kern County. Most of California is rich with natural gas. They're not allowing us to use clean burning coal. And I believe this does rise to the level of national security in purchasing oil from enemies. California, I've got a post up where I was driving back from an event in South Lake Tahoe where diesel gas was as high as $8.15 a gallon. Now, when we start talking about the economy and what it's doing to people, that means anyone driving a truck, everything that brings our food, our textiles, toys, your iPhones, for people out there who want to blame everyone, understand shutting down oil production and refining in the state of California makes everything more expensive. It also requires, and a lot of times, that farmers allow fields to go fallow or trees to die. Again, that puts us getting our food and resources from other countries who may not have the restrictions on making sure that the fertilizers and the pesticides that they're using on our food is safe for us to consume. Now, you talked about data centers. And this is really important. I've looked at this problem with data centers, hence reactivating with new technology Rancho Seco that has the infrastructure, the high transmission lines, the ability to deliver power. Now, we already have places without giving up farmland or these data centers going into populated areas, because there is fallout, if you will, consequences of having these data centers. We're not going to stop them, but we can direct where they go in a responsible manner. And so I'm looking at an old HP site out in Rockland area that already has the infrastructure. It's already had the EPA and all of the zoning and the clearances. The old Aerojet facility, we know Intel facility, the campus out in Folsom, it's already a data center. But those areas were designed, again, putting one out near Rancho Seco. We can do this if we plan properly for moving forward with data centers, with power, with water, with cooling, because we already have places that are designed for this. If we have an old military base where we know the infrastructure was designed to keep people out and to protect the resources or whatever the purpose of that base is. So as we have a lot of closed and decommissioned military bases, that's where we should be putting these data centers and working with the companies and the organizations that are building them. It's keeping it simple. It's repurposing what we already have. We don't have to tear everything down. We see this in new home construction. California, we've got a lot of areas that have been allowed to go into disrepair where they're older homes. Now, in real estate, we call this assemblage. It's where you go in and you modernize, revitalize depressed areas. And it's coming in with money and resources where there's already roads, there's already water, there's already sewer. We have schools, but we've got to update them. We've got to provide more resources, state and federal, towards law enforcement, not just making sure that we have more cops on the ground or sheriffs on the ground, but they have the proper training, the proper resources, and that we pay enough to recruit the best and most reliable people to do those important jobs. And again, that's going to take us to education. California is near the bottom in education in the United States alone, is being beat by what it was considered third world countries. People here, when you've got 29%, and that's a good number in math proficiency, 39% reading proficiency, the United States and especially California, we are not preparing our children to compete in a global economy. And what we have now is schools that want them to feel good about being illiterate losers and being on social welfare programs. That's not success. That's candy coating failure. So when we talk about investing at the national level and with in Congress, we control the power of the purse. So I'm okay using the funds and resources of the federal government to encourage California and other states to get up to speed, to start educating our children rather than indoctrinating them, getting them prepared to compete in a global economy and to be self-sufficient. Focus on their gifts, not trying to make people victims, but bringing back trades. I don't know if you've met any plumbers lately, but they make pretty good money. We have a shortage of welders. We want to get shop classes back in, and we want to see that investment at the federal level, but I do want to see the Department of Education go. That's just a layer of bureaucracy that really has been the spearhead of the downfall for education in California across the country. So we can reinvest and rethink how we're doing this and do it looking forward, considering the consequences that were never considered that got us into this mess. we have a lot of work to do, and I'm not waiting until I'm sworn in to start doing this. We have a lot of work and no time to waste.
You bring up education and the level of academic success our school kids are achieving.
Mm-hmm.
We can go back in history and we can look at how Silicon Valley became the sort of the golden child of the world economy, technically, when it came to technology and investments, and also the developments that came out of it, whether it was Sun Microsystems, whether it was the Oracle
Mm-hmm.
products, and everything related to IT, technically, was born in the Silicon Valley area. HP computers, um, Apple. It took brains to bring those things to be. It took
Yes.
creativity to actually go and start those things. In the 60s, the 50s, the 70s, we had a process for educating people and measuring their success on learning with common factors. Today,
Mm-hmm.
we're not so concerned about the science or the technology or the engineering, mathematics, that sort of a components where you bring it up that we're falling behind the rest of the world. We're so much concerned about the kids' mental, emotional feelings. And that's only a handful, it's not the majority. But we're trying to concentrate all our resources, literally, on the needs of a few. And in the process, we are ignoring the majority of kids who want to learn, they want to progress, and they want to be successful. We're ignoring all those things. We're pushing
I'm
the
going to
social
argue with you. I'm going to
agenda.
stop you. We're
Okay,
not
but we're
ignoring
pushing the
them.
social agenda
Yes,
that
it's
is
we're
now
creating more.
concentrating
Yes,
of sort of taking parents out of the picture. On one
yes,
side, we have a child who's running an electric scooter and hit a 80-year-old veteran. It's sad the veteran died. So the incident itself is nothing that any parent should be proud of. The issue there is the parent bought their child an electric scooter. Its speed and capabilities are more than what a regular toy allowance may be. But we want to punish the parent for the act of their child. Yes, the parent was involved in some of that by buying the product, but here we want parental responsibility. Yet, when it comes to a child in school who some progressive, socialist, whatever you want to call them, teacher or aide or counselor identifies that, hey, here's a child who I can influence into believing they're the wrong gender. And now I can take this child and I can give it drugs, medications, and or hormone treatments, whatever the process is. And guess what? I can do it without parental notification. The parents are not involved. Parents are actually shut out of that cycle. We have this issue, social engineering, where we want the parents out of the picture. And we have the other side of it where we want to punish the parent. There seems to be an imbalance here. We need parents involved in the kids' education, my view. We need them to know how their children are doing. And we need them to be responsible when the children are not are misbehaving, whether it be misbehaving in the classroom, whether it be acts that many children have committed against educators. There are many teachers who suffered at the hands of kids who are just violent and disruptive in nature. We need the parent there to understand what their child's doing and be responsible for their behavior, but we don't want them to be involved when we decide to make their son into a girl or their daughter into a boy. How can that be implemented. That parental responsibility is necessary, it's needed, it should always be in play. And
Mm-hmm.
regardless, any child under 18, no government entity should be taking them and psychologically, physically, socially, mentally engineer them into something that they physically are not. After 18, which we've all decided as a nation, as a group of people, is an age of consent where you, at 18 years old, or 18 and one day maybe, do whatever you like. You can do whatever
No.
you want to yourself according to that stuff, and now take your note. Where do we draw the line? And but more so congressionally, what can Congress do to actually fix this situation and bring us back to the time when parents were involved?
Okay, what you need to understand, first of all, we're looking at second, third, and even fourth generation of people who are not educated and took no responsibility for themselves or their actions. And we're asking them as they're breeding to take responsibility for their children and for the actions of their children when they have themselves been conditioned to say that you're not responsible, that the schools are responsible, that government is responsible, that somebody. So this is a complex problem. But when we start talking about changing the way we do education, and we do need to, I believe it's a national security issue. And we do have teachers who are telling kids, going against their parents, but a lot of times we have parents that are going along with it, that they are convinced, I'm the expert, I know your child better than you do. One of the greatest examples that we know is Chloe Cole. Her parents were convinced to go along with this. And you think about it, I consider it child abuse. Imagine being a child and whatever the issue is that's going on, to have someone tell you that you were made wrong, you are flawed. And then you look at the insidious part of it. God made you wrong, but we can fix you. This is Dr. Frankenstein type stuff. We can fix you with drugs and surgery. And if we take you away from your parents, we can fix what's broken. This is child abuse. And I believe that is something that we need to bring up at the federal level. What's going on. Now, I have already talked about this with a lot of the books that are out there. There's one called Flamers, and it's about this kid who's confused. They show him getting raped in a shower, and they're cartoon novels. And they show him in a church, and he ends up committing suicide, cuts his wrist in a church. There's another one. It's can't remember the name of the book, but it's cartoons, and they're saying in California at least that these cartoon graphic novels, that they don't influence children. They're just graphic novels. They're comic books. Yet we know at the federal level, you can't have cartoons like Joe Camel because those cartoons influence children. So we already have laws on the books, and that is the decency laws. And I believe by reaffirming, introducing legislation that puts teeth in the laws that we already have, these federal laws, I believe we can go after the publishers for distributing pornographic materials, because those are shipped either through the U.S. mail or across state lines, that we can start addressing these and how it affects children. This is took a long time for us to get into this mess, and I don't think it's going to be one representative, or a single election cycle to fix this. But I can tell you, I am laser focused on doing it, and where I can't fix it alone, uh, I'm going to go ex-girlfriend on some of these other members of Congress, and just beating down their doors. And it's not being an activist; it's being proactive. We've got a lot to fix, And it's about looking for solutions, not complaining, and repurposing what we already know works. It's finding those laws that are on the books and enforcing them, not creating new ones to supersede them, but finding out and actually doing the work. And this is my investigative background. And I like looking at everything, even complex issues, breaking it down into simple parts that we can fix. I can't do this alone. Don't claim that I know everything, and it will be trusted advisors, experts in each field, people in energy and education and environment, medical, sociology, you name it. And it is those people who understand process and what we need to do to fix it and how we bypass the nonsense we have tolerated. Because right now, what we have in the House of Representatives, it's what we've tolerated. And that's why this election is so important, that we hold on to the House of Representatives. We increase the number of people that we have. We've seen politicians, Republicans retire, and these socialists trying to take over. We've seen Republicans drop out of the Republican Party, not because it's what's good for the people. It's not because of what they believe. It's because it's self-serving. So in the third district, I'm running to represent the people of California, but the ideas I have, the positive, goal-oriented solutions, not only serve my district, but California and our nation. And I think just my tenacity and problem-solving skills, working with other people that are like-minded, we can do amazing things in this country. We just have to have the will. I'm not worried about the donations from super PACs. I'm not for sale. No one's going to buy me. I'm invested in this. I'm a grandma. I just my fifth grandchild was just born last week, and my time on this planet needs to make sure that they have a country that has their best interest, that has their education, their future, and the future of our country in mind, not having us be submissive to terrorists and dictators and social agendas that move us in a negative or even destructive direction. You know, we're on the precipice of modern technology. It's going to change the way we live with AI. And think about how it works, even where we're talking about power, nuclear power, where we don't have people who were there exposed to radiation or other hazardous things, where we've got computers that are capable of monitoring this, where people can supervise what's going on with this technology, where we can move faster, but we can move safely and prosper. This is an exciting time for our planet. You know, we talk about modern technology. I know California right now, we're having a trouble we have autonomous cars driving in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Sacramento, these driverless cars, which are hazardous. There's people around and other cars, and they can't navigate through water. But you know what? They won't let us in California put tractors out there that don't have people. They work with modern technology. Imagine how much faster our food can be harvested and processed when we've got computers that don't need breaks. They don't make mistakes. They can harvest our food quickly, cleaner, faster. And we're educating people for newer jobs, but our food, we're working positively. None of this has to be negative. It doesn't have to be this knockdown drag out. The knockdown drag out is my way is more efficient. No, we can do it more efficiently this way. We're arguing over the positives, not trying to hold us back as human beings and get in the way of technology and prosperity. I'm excited to go to work.
Well, that's good. Basically, I wanted to give you an opportunity to actually have this meeting and discussion of the campaign. In the last few seconds, minutes we have, do you want to share your campaign information so people can reach out to you, chat with you, discuss with you, and work with you? If they desire, contribute and go door knock for you within District 3. Share your details.
Okay, well, hello everyone. My name is Christine Bish. I'm running for California's 3rd Congressional District. And you can find me on my website at bishforcongress.com. That's BISH for Congress.com. That's my email address, chris@bishforcongress.com. We're also on social media on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, X. It's all under bishforcongress.com. Kept it kind of easy and uniform there. I like to make things simple. And to join the campaign, you do not have to be in California. Honestly, you don't even have to be in the United States to make a phone call, to call people you know and say, have you voted yet? Vote for Christine Bish. To donate, you can do it on any one of those platforms at bishforcongress.com. And it's get excited. You know, this is an exciting time. And as a candidate, I have pledged to people who are in very blue districts that if you help on the campaign, if you can donate, great. If you can make phone calls, stuff envelopes, social media, share the information, contact people in the District 3 and say, this is the lady we want to go to Congress, because I won't just be representing my district or even California. I'm going there to serve in our nation's capital and serve all people. So this is an opportunity for us to get behind a candidate that isn't just thinking such a narrow focus. This is dimensional thinking and positive. We could do a new industrial revolution if we get behind it, embrace it, and make sure we put on the brakes where the brakes need to go on and consider the consequences of our actions. Because a lot of the mistakes that we have now is because people had knee-jerk reactions. They didn't think about A, B, C, and D. I try to consider those things when I'm putting together this legislation, while I'm coming up with ideas, coming up with solutions. And if you have an idea out there that you think is worthy, reach out to me at chris@bishforcongress.com, because there's some great brains out there, great ideas, and you know, we need to get everybody involved in our nation's future and what wonders are ahead of us. So I wanted to thank you all again. My name is Christine Bish.
Well, thank you on that, Chris. Wish you the best for literally 2 weeks down the road, June 2nd, Tuesday, and look forward to discussing further with you the general election and your campaign towards the last lap, basically between the primary and the general election. So all the best. Look forward to talking to you after the primary, and you know, this will be out. We'll see how the people come out and vote. Hopefully, the redistricting didn't make much of an impact.
Actually, I think it made a positive impact on this district. They used flawed numbers. So my team has drilled it down. I believe we're within 2 points of beating Ami Bera. And that's who my Democrat opponent is. And he just got endorsed by the Sacramento Bee. And the Bee's words were, they are endorsing him, but with reservations. That's the liberal media have reservations about him, because he knows the suburbs area, town. He knows nothing about forest and forestry and forest management and fire management. I'm your lady. My name's Christine Bish, and we want to send a Bish to Congress.
You got it. Anyway, thank you and all the best to you. Look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks. Bye. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਸੋਚ ਟੀਵੀ ਤੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਸੀ ਕ੍ਰਿਸਟੀਨ ਬਿਸ਼, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਕੈਲੀਫੋਰਨੀਆ ਕੰਗਰੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਡਿਸਟ੍ਰਿਕਟ 3। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕੈਂਪੇਨ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੁਣਿਆ ਹੈਗਾ, ਦੇਖਿਆ ਹੈਗਾ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਖਿਆਲਾਤ ਜੋ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ। ਹੁਣ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ ਦੇਵੋ, ਮਿਲਦੇ ਆ ਅਗਲੀ ਵਾਰੀ। ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਸੋਚ ਟੀਵੀ, ਮੈਂ ਇੰਦਰਜੀਤ ਕਾਲੀਰਾ। ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਜੀ।